So I want to talk today about renovation. Think about that word for just a minute. Renovation, it gives you one of two responses to the most typical person. One is excitement. You're going to do something dramatic. You're going to make something that's old new again. You're going to take something that's broken down and make it great. Or it causes intense fear, because the idea of doing anything that's renovating means that there's hard work involved, and if stuff doesn't fit just right, it means that it doesn't work. Renovation can be a very stressful thing for people. My wife and I have gone through 2 renovations in our time together. Both of them were in Utah. We bought a house that had a portion of the basement that wasn't quite finished, and we wanted to finish it up. And we had some really good friends, some dear friends of ours that came over and helped us. Basically, they did it. We just had to help hold sheetrock and had to cut every now and then and hold stuff in place. They did a great job with us. But it was a little bitty, about 6 foot wide by about 20 feet was about it. So this was not very difficult. The second house in Utah was a different story, because nothing is small out west. So the top level was about 2,400 square feet. And there was a full basement, with the exception of one cold storage room. And so we'd made the decision, we were either going to do a basement, or we were going to do the basement, or we were going to do our backyard. And the basement, when you have 2 kids, won out over the backyard. 2,300 square feet in the basement. We had some other, I want to say they're dear friends, but the fact that they showed us how to do this meant that we had to do it, so maybe they weren't quite as good of friends after all. But they showed us how to do get the walls put up and do all the stuff, put all the studs in place. And so we did all of that ourselves. It was a pretty daunting task. We would buy lumber each payday, and we'd go down whenever we had time. Some nights we'd get 4 or 5 put up. Some nights we had to redo 4 or 5. Because when you put the level, my wife makes fun of me because I love my level, but we'd put the level up, and what we thought was good enough the night before turns out no, not really, because you don't want the thing to fall down. So we had to go do some of those again. But it came time finally for plumbing and for electric, and I didn't want to have the ill effects of not having the plumbing right, and I didn't want to kill myself with electricity. So we hired those things out, and my memory, vaguely in my memory, I remember us trying to hang one piece of sheetrock, and we were so horrible at it that we decided to hire that out too. The end result was, I can proudly say we put all the studs in place by ourselves, but everything else we ended up having to hire out for this. But it got me addicted. It got me addicted to HGTV. Any other HGTV addicts out there? Because think about what's on HGTV. You get to see the before and after effects of things, and it's all about the possibilities that you see. You get all these great ideas. I used to make fun of her because she would get great ideas and it would end up with me having to do something. Now it's like I see stuff and I kind of want to do it, and then I try to look at those pictures of us renovating the house before, and it breaks me of that right away. So now I just watch for entertainment value, but I thought I would go through briefly a few shows that I really, really like. One of them is Property Brothers. Any of you watch Property Brothers? Okay, yes. Drew and Jonathan Scott are a set of twins. There they are. One of them is in real estate, and I joke with her that he gets the property, but then he's gone. The guy that does all the work is Jonathan, who is the one that is the contractor. And I got to tell you, if these 2 guys knocked on my door and said, "We just want to pick a room and do something," I would just say, "Come on in," because they never do anything bad. Everything looks great when they get done with it. They also help. One thing that Drew does do really well as the real estate guy is he breaks people of the thought that they can afford their dream home on their current income. Because what he does is give them the brutal reality of what has to happen for them to be able to afford it. So the idea behind this show, if you don't know it, is they show them these immaculate properties that has everything on their wish list, and then they come in and they say, "You can't afford this. Your budget's like $500,000, and this is an $800,000 home. But we can buy a house, and Jonathan here can renovate it and make it into your dream home." That's what they do. Another one is a show called Flip or Flop. because this is unfortunately, this was a married couple. They're breaking up, which breaks my heart because I really love the way that they interact with each other. And it's kind of a microcosm of most marriages that I know, because they'll talk about the tile, and she'll say, we need to do this. And this Christina and Tarek will look back and say, but that's really way expensive. That's going to blow our budget. And she just persists, and eventually Tarek says, oh, she's right. Guys, we do that, right? Oh, she's right. At least we better. And then the other one is one that a lot of people watch called Fixer Upper. And this is the one that features Chip and Joanna Gaines. This is a big one in Christian circles because they're very open about their faith. And these two guys, this family, I feel sorry for all other realtors in the Waco, Texas market, because if you get a chance to get Chip and Joanna Gaines to get your house for you and to fix it up for you, that's what you want to do. These folks do some amazing stuff. There's some others that I like. There's a show called Love It or List It. I watch every now and then. One of my favorite shows is called Yard Crashers. These people, they go to a store like Home Depot or someplace like that, and they basically are finding people who are looking at yard care stuff, and then they go to their house and they take whatever budget they were going to use, and they basically have you get a bunch of friends over, and they show you how to make your yard into this immaculate Shangri-La type place. That never happened for us in Utah. Hasn't happened here either. But the yard here is in much better shape than the one that was out in Utah to start with. All of these shows involve a couple of things. It involves people recognizing limitations. It involves people recognizing the concept of confronting their realities. And all of them involve renovation of some kind. Today's scripture, we're going to go back to the Old Testament to what I think is one of the best renovation stories in the entire Bible. And it comes from the book of 2 Kings. It's chapter 22, verses 3 through 13. It says, in the 18th year of King Josiah, the king sent Shaphan, son of Azaliah, son of Meshullam, the secretary, to the house of the Lord, saying, go up to the high priest Hilkiah and have him count the entire sum of the money that has been brought into the house of the Lord, which the keepers of the threshold have collected from the people. Let it be given into the hand of the workers who have the oversight of the house of the Lord. Let them give it to the workers who are at the house of the Lord repairing the house. That is, to the carpenters, to the builders, to the masons, and let them use it to buy timber and quarried stone to repair the house. But no accounting shall be asked from them for the money that is delivered into their hand, for they deal honestly. The high priest Hilkiah said to Shaphan, the secretary, I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord. When Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, he read it. Then Shaphan, the secretary, came to the king and reported to the king, your servants had emptied out the money that was found in the house and have delivered it into the hand of the workers who have oversight over the house of the Lord. Shaphan the king informed the king, the priest Hilkiah has given me a book. Shaphan then read it aloud to the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his clothes. Then the king commanded the priest Hilkiah, Ahikam son of Shaphan, and Akbor son of I can't pronounce the names, Micaiah. Shaphan the secretary and the king's secretary Isaiah, saying, go inquire of the Lord for me, for the people and all of Judah, concerning the words of this book that has been found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our ancestors did not obey the words of this book, to do according to all that is written concerning us. What does all that mean? Well, it's really a story about two renovations. The temple is about to get a renovation. It's in disrepair. It needs to be fixed. The second thing that needs to happen is the people of Israel need a spiritual renovation because they've gotten away from what God asked them to do. So we learn if we go back to the very beginning of that chapter, we know that King Hosea was all of 26 years old when this happens. He was an 8-year-old king. Think about that for a second, an 8-year-old king. And it's been 18 years since he's been king. So at this point, he's all of 26 years old, and he orders the high priest Hilkiah to collect the money that's been donated for the temple. And the idea is he wants to pay these workers so they do quality work. He wants the best of the best to fix up the temple. This is the temple that, I'm not sure how many years have passed, but it's obviously got some wear and tear. I want you to think of this as the holy fixer-upper. Think about how tough that, or what an exciting challenge that might be. One thing that I kind of envision happened with the temple is the same thing that happens in the very first few minutes of each of these shows that we talked about. There's what's known as demo day. And it's got to be the coolest day ever, because it's the day that people get sledgehammers and they get crowbars and they pry stuff off of walls. They get to sling stuff down. They get to knock down all kinds of fun stuff. We like to be destructive, right? It's the one redeeming value of doing a renovation is you get to tear down the old stuff. So they get to do all this. And I kind of envision that that's what happened in the temple. They had to tear down the bad stuff so that they could then put the new in place. Well, as the workers are making repairs to the temple, maybe during that demo day, Hilkiah, the chief priest, finds out that they've come across the instruction scroll. Now, the instruction scroll depends on which Bible commentary you read, but it's one of two things most likely. It's either the full book of Deuteronomy or it's a section of the book of Deuteronomy. And so either one of those two things, when you hear Deuteronomy, I know the first thing you think of, wow, exciting read. I'm going to go home and read it right now, right? Deuteronomy, not so much. So let me give you the Cliff's Notes version. Here's what's in the book of Deuteronomy. The Ten Commandments are recounted in the book of Deuteronomy. There's a command to tell the Israelites that they are to leave no enemy alive when they conquer the promised land. Kill them all. It's a confusing thing for us as Christians to think of God telling them to kill everybody who's in the promised land, but God was doing that so that they would clear out all the bad influences so they could live the life that God wanted them to do. It reminds the people not to forget the Lord. Keep that one in the back of your memory for just a second. Not to forget the Lord. Dietary laws are put in there. Quick synopsis of that. Deer and goats, good. Rabbits and shrimp, bad. Overly simplified there, but the idea being that certain kinds of animals were clean, some were not. How to deal with debts is in the book of Deuteronomy. Observance of the Passover, a very important celebration, is in the book of Deuteronomy. How to be a witness in a legal case. How many witnesses are necessary? That's in the book of Deuteronomy. And of course, rules for marriage. Not quite the, yes, honey, you're right, but it's, you get the idea. There's stuff in there about marriage. So when the secretary for the high priest reads the scroll to King Josiah, the king realizes how much trouble the Israelites are in. Because if it was the whole book, at the end of Deuteronomy is a list of curses. Wrath that's going to come down from God if they didn't do all the things that were in that book. And I just read you the things that are in there. Remember that one I told you keep in the back of your head. Don't forget the Lord. They obviously had forgotten the Lord. The scroll that has all this important information is tucked in a wall somewhere, and they had to find it on accident. So Josiah knows that they are in big trouble because they've been disobedient. And folks, there's a whole lot of disobedience going on in Israel at this time. Josiah knows they're in deep trouble. He's so upset that when he learns how far the people have gone astray, and he knows this because he knows what the people are doing, and now he's had it read to him what they're supposed to be doing, and he knows those two things don't match at all. And so Josiah tears his robe, and he says, I would assume through tears, something along the lines of, the Lord must be furious with us because our ancestors failed to obey the words of the scroll and do everything written in it about us. And I got to think he probably tacked on at the end, and man, we're still not doing it. We're in big trouble. It's kind of an ominous thought. What they didn't know, however, was that their spiritual lives had gone so far astray. In a way, I bet there was some kind of ignorance, because even though they knew what the Ten Commandments said, that would have been voiced. They would have talked about that a lot. They would have had other scrolls that they would have read from. But Deuteronomy puts everything in a nice package for them. So they learned that they recognized right away when they read the scroll that they haven't been following the Ten Commandments. They haven't been following the rules for taking legal cases. They haven't been following rules for marriage. In fact, they just weren't doing a lot of things. Think about our lives. Are we not doing a lot of things that God has asked of us? Maybe so. Now, sure, they had the temple, but they kind of forgot why they had the temple. They were just kind of going through the motions. They weren't following the laws. What the Israelites actually had abandoned, that they realized when they saw the book of Deuteronomy, was they weren't following the spiritual disciplines that were supposed to help them remember who God was. The Passover meal, the other festivals. A lot of the things that were supposed to be celebratory and help people understand who God was and their relationship with God, they'd forgotten about because they'd literally lost the book. It'd be like if we, for a couple of 100 years, put all our Bibles away and we forgot about the Bible and we didn't think about it, we didn't read it very often, and then 200 years later we pull it out of a time capsule or something and it's like a surprise for us. That's kind of what happened to the people of Israel. We can avoid their fate, but we have to be willing to do what they didn't do. We have to be willing to accept the fact that we have to pay attention to the spiritual disciplines that help us stay close to God. And remember that most important rule that Deuteronomy reminded them about: don't forget the Lord. Think about what the spiritual disciplines are in your life. Do you make attendance and worship a priority? You all did today. I remember a pastor one time in Utah telling us that you can meditate on your own, because we were around all kinds of beautiful red sandstone cliffs, and a lot of people would say, we don't have to go to church. I hike on Sunday morning. And I remember Daryl Henshaw telling us all in church one day, just bluntly, you can meditate by yourself, but you can't worship by yourself. Worship is a corporate event. Worship is something where people get together. So making worship a priority. Do you pray every day? Multiple times a day? And not just about the God I want or God please. What about being thankful for what we already have? Are those things that you do on a regular basis? Think about it as a conversation with a friend. How many times do you text somebody during the day? Excluding the younger folks, because that's out there on a different scale all by itself. But us older folks, when we're texting, we text our friends and family members several times a day. How often do we talk to God? That idea of being close to Him. Do you serve others in some way every day? Service is a part of what God has told us we're supposed to be doing for other people. And I don't mean like the beyond. I get on Josh all the time because he just doesn't do his dishes. And he's nodding his head because he knows it's right. So I end up doing the dishes. That's not a service to others. I mean, it's somebody that is not your family that you're going to help out for in some way. Do we serve others each day? How about exactly what happened to the Israelites? They weren't reading the scripture. They weren't paying attention to Deuteronomy because they forgot about it. It was hidden. Do you read scripture every day? And I'm not talking, you don't have to sit down and do like the Bible in a year, although it's very effective. I did that one time. It was a very good tool for me. I need the discipline to do that or else I don't. The reason I teach Sunday school is because I need that discipline to study the Bible. I'm terrible left to my own devices. But we can do it through a devotion. There are free Bible apps. There are free downloads. There's websites. We ask for a love gift offering, but you can take one of the upper rooms that are out there. If you can't pay, take one anyway. But it's an opportunity to stay close to God and to learn about what's in the Scripture. Probably the one we fall down the most on as Christians is, do we take part in small groups, communities of believers that are going to hold us accountable for all those other things that we can talk with and have an honest discussion about what's going on in our spiritual lives. Some people do, but not very many. We only have one adult Sunday school class, and we have anywhere from 16 to about 22 people in there on a regular basis. We have some circles, some women's circles. That's probably something we need to be more deliberate about as a church, of getting small groups together, and then holding people accountable would be part of those small groups. That's where you build relationships, and that's one of the spiritual disciplines that we can all take part in, and it's a lot of fun. Now the reality is all of these things take really little effort. The devotional that I do every morning is from an app called YouVersion, just on my phone. It takes me 5 minutes maybe, and that's if it has multiple scriptures with it that day. It's not like it's a long time thing rather. The problem with the Israelites was that they strayed so far and they didn't know what they didn't know. Go back to the renovation thing for just a second. We had to have people come over and show us how to set the boards properly the first time. So if you got the first one right, you had a good opportunity to get the rest of them correct along that wall. I didn't know that at the beginning. I had to have somebody come and show me and show me exactly how to do it. And then we were able to pull it off the rest of the way through that basement. The instructions are in our scriptures. The instructions are in the people sitting in the pew next to you. It's a matter of keeping our eyes open and recognizing we have to have those same disciplines. Almost all of those HGTV shows end with a happy ending. Happy people, they walk into the new home or the renovated space and they're in awe about all the great things that have happened because somebody has put the work into making what once was broken into something immaculate. That's what Christ wants to do in our lives. All of us are broken. I hate to tell you that, but it's the reality. We all are sinners. We're all broken. Christ wants to renovate you. The tools that he uses are those spiritual disciplines. So attendance and worship, very important. Thank you all for being here today. Invite a friend next week. Just prayer, multiple times a day. The concept of being in a small group. The idea of reading scripture every day and doing service for others. Those are 5 spiritual disciplines. There are more, but those are the 5 that I think are the most key. With that, Christ will help renovate your life and will help bring you closer to God. And then you also can be like the temple, end up far better off than what you were before.